In this part of the series, we're going to recreate some of the animations for the wizard. And the reason that we are going to recreate them is because a lot of people have requested that we can see a visual representation on the wizard when we equip and de-equip our gear. So I've recreated the sprites for the wizard, which means that the gear has been divided into different sprites so that we can see those sprites on the wizard when we equip it. Right now the wizard's base sprite is just him with underwear on. As you can see here, he is almost naked. And this is the base of all the animations, which means that he can do everything in this form. He can walk around and idle in all directions, and he can cast a spell, of course. So what I've done is that each item is now in a separate layer. So when we equip the pants, you'll see that he has pants on right now. And the same goes for the rest of the gear, except the gloves, which we can't see on him, and the offhand, which is not visible on him. But the rest of the gear is visible. You can try to put on a hat. So you can see, we can see the hat in all directions. You can walk with it, and he can also attack, of course. The same goes for the chest. And as you can see, we can see the pants beneath the chest right here. If I would equip them, they will be gone. As you can see now, he has these normal brown grayish pants on, but in the second I equip them, you can see them underneath. So we will be able to see the changes that we are doing to the wizard as we equip and de-equip stuff. As you can see, I can take the hat off as well and everything. And yeah, that's what we're going to learn in this part. Another item I've added is these shoulders, right here, the shoulders. Before, the wizard just looked like this. You can see he's a little bit taller than the original one, but I needed to do that so that the hat would fit on him and everything. So you can see the shoulders is new. You can see that he has now shoulders on. I feel like I needed to do that because that's a major item, and it is something you need to be able to see on the wizard when you need to make this visual representation. Boots, of course, also visible. As you can see right here now, he has boots on. And the weapon, of course, as it was before, is also visible. And yeah, all these animations, of course, works for like what is it called? For all animations. I mean, all the sprites works for all animations. That's what I'm trying to say. So you can see I can have my weapon this way, this way, this way, this way, and you notice that the shoulders goes in front of the weapon when he turns upward. And of course, you can attack and make that animation. So also, of course, we can de-equip our armor, and when we de-equip it, you'll see that it disappears from the wizard as well. So you can have a weird looking wizard, but it's just, yeah, this is just necessary for make this work, right? Of course, we need to be able to take off the armor as well. So I hope that you guys are going to enjoy this part of the series. I had an idea about just changing the color of the armor when equipping it, but I felt like I need to go all the way with this so that you guys could see how it would work in an actual game. So let's get started on creating the new animations and preparing this project for being able to de-equip and equip gear. The first thing we have to do is to import the new sprites into the project. And if you go to Patreon or go to Cells and re-download the assets, then you'll see that there's a new folder inside the assets called New Sprites. And this folder contains a folder for gear and a folder for the player sprites. And as you can see, each item has its own sprites for each animation. As you can see on the weapon, there's attack back, front, left and right, idle, back, front, left and right, and walk, back, front, left and right. And it's the same for every single sprite that we have here, for example, shoulders and everything. So each item will have its own animations. So what are we going to do? We are going to import this. I am going to go to the sprite folder, and I will take the gear and import it into the sprite folder so that the gear is on its own inside the sprites folder. We already have something for the player, and I'm just going to let Unity import these. And when all these are important, we actually have to delete the old animations and the old sprites for the player. So basically, we can just open the player. Basically, we can just delete the player folder, delete like that, delete. And the player is going to disappear. Then we also need to go to animations and go into the player folder and select everything, delete them. Okay. So now the game won't work because we don't have any animations for the player, and we need to create those. So let's do that. We have the player folder here, and just import that into your sprites folder as well. And when that is done, we can start recreating our animations. You might have noticed that these are sprite sheets instead of single sprites, because I figured that when we have so many sprites to work with, it would be easier for us to work with sprite sheets, because we will have lots of files instead of just one file for every single image, right? So we have a sprite sheet for each animation, and these are correspondent with the sprites for the gear, as you can see here. And this will make more sense later when we start to put the sprites on top of each other. I'll explain that when we get to it. So first of all, we need to make sure the player can just idle, walk back and forth, and all those things with the new sprites. So you can select all the sprites in the player folder, go here and say pixels per unit 300. Remember that that's the value we're using to scale down the player sprites so they don't look too big on the screen. With that done, we select the sprite mode, because now we're working with sprite sheets. And when we work with sprite sheet, we select multiple and we click apply. So each of these sprites here are actually 512 multiplied by 512. So that's one sprite. If we open it up, this is 512 times 512. So we can just select attack back, sprite editor, open up the sprite editor. Let's see if I can have it right. Let's make it a little smaller so you can see everything. And then we say slice, grid by cell, 512, 512. So every single sprite sheet that I've created here is 512 by 512. So we press slice and apply. We need to do this for all the sprites down here. So you can just select front with the sprite editor open, click slice, apply. And the same goes for left, open, slice, apply. As you can see, it's put into those squares here when we do that. So it fits perfectly. So why we're not using auto, if I do automatic and slice, you'll see that the squares are becoming smaller, and then each sprite will have a different size, so that it will be harder for us to match the items on top of the player, because they will have another size than the actual player. For example, the head will go further out here, so it's not going to be the same size, and it's harder to position. So grid by grid, slice like that, apply, next, slice, apply. And I'm pretty sure there are assets for doing this faster, but now we're just going to click them one by one like this. So I know there are assets for applying the same thing for all sprites. Let's just do like this, and just keep the pivot in the center. That's fine. Like the pivot here, just keep it in the center. We don't need to change that. Oops, apply. And then we need the two last ones right there. And notice that there's an arrow when we do this. When we click the slice button and click apply, then there's going to be an arrow next to it. And if you remember correctly, then you remember that that's because all the sprites are now available one by one. Each sprites are now available. Okay, so the first thing I would like to do is to just give the player a simple sprite, right? Select the player. You can see the sprite is missing. Just write idle. And let's see if we can find something. Idle underscore front. And just pick one just to see the player on the screen. You can see if we maximize, it might give us some errors because we don't have anything. That's fine. Then he's just standing right there. I think his size is fine, because when he's going to have a hat on, he's going to be a little larger. Okay, so now he has a sprite. We need to give him some animations. So let's see here. Idle left, idle right, idle front and back. Okay, let's start with the front. Select all the front sprite, drag them in here. Let's just do it in the same folder, and then we can move them after. We call it idle underscore front, just like that. And do the same for idle left. Actually, let's do it for all sprites. Let's do it for idle first. Idle underscore left. And idle right. You can do it in other order if you want to. Idle underscore right. Then we have walk. Idle underscore, walk underscore, what was this, back? And I think you get it now, right? We just make animations based on the name of the sprite sheet. walk underscore front, and then we have walk left, and we have walk right. Okay, so that was the walk and the idles. We also need to do it to, we don't have idle back, do we? Nope. So idle back as well. Idle underscore back. And then we have the attacks, of course. So just take attack back, front, left, right. Attack front. And attack left. And attack right. There we go. So maybe you just skip me doing this, that's fine. It's just the same thing we're doing over and over again. So what do we need to do now? Now we have all the animations for the wizard or the player. And I'm just going to minimize those. I'm going to delete all the character controllers. I'm just going to click on them, hold control down on the keyboard, and then click on every single character controller right here. Character control, animation control, sorry. And then just delete them, because we don't need them. Remember, we already have an animation controller for our player in here, as you can see, player controller. Then we can go back to our sprites, our player, and select all the animations by holding control down again. And when you have selected those, you can just take them and drag them into the player folder right there. Now all the animations are gathered in the player folder. So take note that the enemies animations are named the same, attack, left, right, up, or whatever. So it's hard to differ them from the player. So if you want to differ them from the player, you could also rename them and write wizard in front and then underscore attack, for example, if you want to do that. Sorry I didn't do that before, I just figured out. And this is left spelled wrong. But that's up to you if you want to do that. It's just going to be easier for you if you need to search for it later. Then it's easier if we name them wizard underscore whatever it is. The reason I didn't name it player is because we also have a knight that is going to be implemented into the game. So he's also a player. So I'm going to name the class in front of it. So now they're different from the skeletons naming here. Okay. We have all these new sprites or animations in the game now. So just select all of them and delete them. Then we select our player and we open up our animator. If you can't find the animator, it's on the window, and then you need to find the animator right there and it will open up for you. So now we need to put all the animations in place. We can open up the idle layer and double click on idles and select here. You'll see we have some different animations right there. So I would like to keep the same order as I did before so that we don't break anything. It's not alphabetically like it is over here. So when y is -1, we would actually like to play what's it called, the front animation. So let's say front, not attack, it's idle front, and then we would like to have idle back beneath it, and we would like to have idle right after. That's left and that's right. So it's called front, back, right, left. That's how we had it before, and that's how we are going to keep it. Front, back, right, left. So we need to remember that. We need to do the same for the walk layer. So select the walk layer, select that one, and we take front, back, right, and left. So that done, we can go back to the attack layer and find that there. And set up everything, front, back, left, right. Right, left, sorry. So front, back, right, left. There we go. Okay, so with all that set up, let's try to play the game. Let's see what happens. So with the wizard is idling when I started, and now he's walking around in his new clothes, like his new form here, where he only has his underwear on or whatever, those simple pants on. And as you can see, I can still put in a spell and attack with it. Oh, did you see that? When I start attacking, he keeps repeating the attack. So why does he do that? Well, that's because our attack animations are not set to not loop. So we need to select all the attack animations one by one and remove the loop time from them. So we just forgot that. Let's try again. Oops, right there. And there we go. So now he's standing there, and when he's done, he goes back to idle. So now it works exactly the same as it did before. However, we don't have any clothes on right now. So what I would need you to do right now is to create all the animations for the rest of the gear. I'm going to show you how to create it for the hat, and then you can do it for the rest of them as well. I'm not going to show you how to do it for every single item because that's a lot, because it's the same process over and over again. And then in the next video, I expect you to have all the animations ready so that we can go and use them. So let's just, okay, I can do it for the boots, for example. So we select the boots. You can see all these animations. We do exactly the same as we did before. We select all of them. We put the pixels per unit to 300. We put it as multiple and click apply. When you have applied this, you will have to edit all of them. So you click on the first one, sprite editor, slice, grid by grid, grid by cell, 512, 12, slice, apply. And that's what you need to do for all of them. Slice and apply until you are done with all of these. So I'm going to show you in a second why all these have 12 by 12, 512, 512 on them. Because there's a point to this. Right now, as you can see, this cell is way too big for the boots. But the reason of this size is because we need to make sure that it can fit on top of the wizard without any problems. So let's just finish these off so that I can show you. So maybe you're already skipping ahead. Let's see here, idle right. So I guess you can't just select more of them. I haven't actually tried, but it doesn't make sense if I can. Slice and apply. Yeah, of course you can't. So you need to do this for a single. Just another thought. Unless you know some other trick that I don't, then please let me know in the comments. Okay, so now they're all sliced. Let's try this. So if I would go to the player, this is actually what we're going to do in the next video. So we can just start on it. We have the player right here. What you're going to do is to right click on the player and duplicate him. When the player is duplicated, you delete the exits, you delete the blocks, you delete the layer sorter. Then you select the player and you remove the player script, and you remove the rigid body, and you remove the box collider. So you're left with a sprite that is basically, it's identical to the player. However, it doesn't have all the extra things on it. It has the player control on it. It's actually not going to have that, so you can just select that one and select none for now. But what I want to show you is that if I select the new player here and I put it, for example, as a child object of this player, then you can rename it to let's call it feet socket. So this is a socket where our feet are going to be, our boots are going to be equipped. That's the feet socket. So we're going to have a socket for each place, like head, shoulders, chest, gloves, and so on. This is the feet socket. The ordering layer is 200. The player's ordering layer is 200. So let's just try to put it as, actually let's use the right value. The right value will be 201. There we go. And because of the size of the sprites, this one, the boots should be going right on top of the player. So it fits with the size. So if I select the boots idle front 0, and I take this feet socket and take idle front 0 and put it right there, you'll see that the boots fits exactly on top of the player because the sprite is the same size. So when I play it, it doesn't really work right now because the feet are not really moving, they're very still. Okay, the boots are not the worst thing to do this with, but however, it's going to be the same with all the armor. It's going to fit right on top of him by doing this. So you can see we're getting this null reference camera follow start. The reason of that is because the feet socket are still tagged as a player, so you just need to untag it as a player, so the camera knows what it needs to follow. As you can see right here, it disappears now. So what I need you to do before the next video is to make sure that all the sprites are created for what is called, not only the sprites, but all the animations are created for all the items. So now that I have boots, attack, back, and so on as sprites, I can select all of them and create boots, attack, back animation. When you create all the animations, you delete the controllers and you take the boots and put them into a new folder. Under animations, we can actually create a new folder called it's called gear, and that's where all the animation will go. So this one will go into gear. So that's one of them, and then I need to do it for the rest of them. So that's what I want to do in this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope that you're as excited as me about this gear functionality that we are going to implement here. Thanks for watching my video. Please remember that InScope Studios is a community founder page, so please consider clicking the support link on the screen to see how you can support me and get something back in return.